Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
It's Tuesday, a little early for DMZers. We tend to like to review the week to some extent, and we're coming you ahead of the first presidential debate. But that's sometimes this is the best we can do. You get what you pay for at the DMZ, and this is the best we can do.
Some of them do pay at Patreon, but not enough to warrant me doing this from vacation. That's where I'll be next week. That's the whole problem here. I scheduled to be off next week, and then we discovered, actually leaving on Friday, and then we discovered, oh, there's a debate that's going to be happening Thursday night. So normally Bill and I would be in here Friday doing a post debate. I guess a little housekeeping, Bill. It's possible that Guy Denton and I will be doing a post-debate podcast. I'm not sure about that. And it's possible that next week, good Lord willing, you and Guy, my other podcast partner, in my absence, will do a DMZ sort of cross post. So maybe you will be able to talk about the debate. But anyway, we've got to get this. We've got to do our thing early in the week. Because who knows what the future may hold.
We will at least talk about why Matt Lewis is terrible while you're gone.
I hope. I would love. The worst thing is to be ignored, Bill. I hope that you will get into it. And I'm sure I know you both in different ways. And especially you, because I've been annoying you for 15 years now.
So, do you have like a set of debate predictions, expectations, criteria that should be met? Does this even matter at all? We all just bloviating, and it's going to be a non-issue come November. What's your general thought?
Well, in a minute, I think we should talk about the debate, the lead up to the debate, because I think Donald Trump is obviously laying the groundwork if he loses to say the whole thing was rigged, right? So we need to get into that. I have a piece at the Daily Beast about that. But specifically going into this debate, I think that I feel like this is going to sort of be like World War I. You know what I mean? Like trench warfare, just grinding away. I do not predict that it's going to be a super fun or exciting debate. I think the fact that there's not going to be a crowd there means that Trump won't be in performance mode to the degree he might otherwise be, especially once you get into, I don't know how long this thing is going to go. But after a while, when sort of the newness of the night wears on, Trump won't be able to feed off the crowd. Probably good for Biden. Probably not great from a consumer standpoint as a viewer. And I think Biden just has, Biden's goal is simple: don't come across as old. Probably that matters way more than anything he might say. Trump's goal should be don't come across as crazy or dangerous. I think Biden is more committed to trying to accomplish his goal than Trump is to trying to accomplish his goal. So we'll see how that goes. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I feel this whole thing is, Biden's the incumbent. Biden is performing worse in polls than an incumbent you'd expect to, based on economic data. Because questions about his mental acuity, which I would say are unfair, but I think that's the most obvious interpretation to make. Trump himself set the standard. This guy can't string two sentences together. I'll wipe the floor with him. He set that standard. So, I hear a lot of commentary about they have to prioritize this issue or that issue, and he should talk about this, and he shouldn't talk about that, and he needs to sell his record. No, he needs to hit Trump hard. I'm like, I don't think any of that is relevant so long as he comes across as cogent and on top of things. And Trump has put out there, should I be mean? Should I be nice? Which is clearly an attempt to throw the Biden people off. Of what we now need to have two strategies. What are we going to do in this scenario or that scenario? And perhaps this is, you have to be careful not to. You do need to prepare for multiple scenarios. I probably should, not overstate this, but I can't see why it would be in Trump's interest to be nice. I understand there's a certain incentive for Trump to pivot at some point and not just have a base only strategy if they realize it. Maybe Trump will not realize it, but that would be a logical thing to do, to say, hey, I'm not this crazy person they make us out to be. I ran a good economy for 3 years. I know how to, reel it in when I have to. There's a certain incentive for him to do that. But his primary goal is to make Biden look like an idiot. So why would you go gentle on him and give him that opportunity? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think Trump's going to go in hard and try to trip him up in some way. Maybe try to ignore the rules and talk even if the mic is muted, just so Biden's distracted. Maybe make him, if Biden turns suddenly and why do you do that? I didn't hear anything from Trump. They can clip that and make him look like he's weird. Stuff like that. If Biden just stays on point and sounds clear and articulate and competent, he's won.
I think that's right. We could go into more, but honestly, I think that's it. I think that's what it comes down to. It's not about hitting any specific point. It's, can Trump rattle Biden, and can Biden come across as, energetic, cogent, awake, all those things. And so I think a good night's rest for Joe Biden is more important probably than prepping on all the details and whatnot. So, but I do think it's interesting, Bill, as I mentioned earlier, how Trump is laying the groundwork, just like he does. The trial is rigged even before he's found guilty. The 2020 election, if the only way he could lose is if it's rigged, right? And he's basically saying that about the debate, that the only way he could lose is if it's rigged. And of course, there are two ways, by my calculations. One, it's because Joe Biden is going to be hopped up on goofballs. And two, it's because Dana Bash and Jake Tapper are biased liberal. Basically, Trump will be debating 3 Democrats. Now, the thing that Trump won't tell you is he agreed to this debate. What? Let's assume that's all true. Let's assume the deck is stacked against Trump. Why would you put yourself in this situation? Wouldn't a smart Republican who wants to win negotiate a better deal, insist on different moderators, insist we'll do the debate after the drug test, whatever it is you really want? Why would you allow yourself to be boxed into this debate if you're really the strong candidate who always wins?
I mean, I hesitate to try to be, a Trump psychologist. But we do know, saying the game is rigged is Trump's go-to play, going back to the Emmys. It's not even just about being president. All he knows is I'm the greatest, and if any kind of judge or moderator or electorate or election official says otherwise, it's because it's rigged, not that I'm not the strongest and the smartest and the best that's ever walked the face of the earth. That's all he knows. And he's taken it to literally the most extreme degree possible. I will foment an insurrection to prove to you that this thing was rigged. there is no limit of how much you would take this argument. So of course he's going to say this about the debate. And to your point, I think he's so committed to that. And I almost think there's a certain fatalism that he has, that he doesn't try his best to win by the set rules. He did not have a legal strategy in the hush money case designed to maximize his ability to get an acquittal or a hung jury. He played for the crowd the entire time and not the jury. It's the only gear that he has. So I just think he felt like it wasn't worth debating the particulars about the debate structure because he was going to go to this place anyway.
Maybe there's a psychological component to it. He can never really be a loser if he didn't really try hard, And so it's an inferiority complex or something weird. But I do think it helps him in the sense that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It allows him to. So by preemptively whining and complaining, he's essentially working the refs, lobbying for special treatment. Nobody wants Don to be upset. And then if he does lose, in the event that he does lose, he's kind of poisoned the well and undermined the credibility of the institution. So it's heads he wins, tails you lose. And so I
Well,
think it works for him, actually.
well, but I disagree because, like, let's say the moderators are totally in the tank for Biden. They give Biden nothing but softballs, Trump all hardballs. They interrupt Trump. They don't interrupt Biden. If Biden is suffering from dementia, that wouldn't matter. It's not like I only have dementia when I have hardball questions and not softball questions. Like, either he knows what's going on or he doesn't. So you can complain about the moderator behavior all you want. You said Biden couldn't string two sentences together. Guess what he did? Maybe your standard, or maybe your entire narrative of this campaign is wrong. I think he has created a criteria. I mean, this is the mistake that, in a somewhat of a distance way, a similar problem that Mitt Romney had in 2012 when he bet everything on unemployment being above 8%. Then October, guess what? It went below 8%. He set the criteria on something that he can't control. But Trump has set the criteria on something he can't control Biden's performance. And the best pre-buttal he has is that he's shooting with goofballs. There's some wonder drug that's been created that no one else has ever heard of before. That if you're suffering from dementia,
Yeah,
you can take this drug, and you no longer have dementia for a 90-minute period of time. There's no drug like that exists. But that's the argument that he has, just in case Biden does a good job.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a doctor or anything. I'm not Dr. Ronnie Jackson or Ronnie Johnson or whatever name Trump has given him recently. You saw that, right, Bill?
Yeah.
Trump literally didn't know the last name of his doctor while he was making the point that Biden is demented. Look, I'm not an expert, but I assume that if you're sort of brain addled and you literally couldn't string two sentences together, giving you like caffeine or something stronger would just make you maybe more of a mess, like more of an awake, addled person. Like, so I do think that Biden will be well rested and probably heavily caffeinated. And I do think he has certainly lost a step, but yes, if he were really completely gone, I don't think any drugs would help. And in fact, they might actually hurt.
Yeah, I mean, Biden is always he's an inconsistent debate performer. He's had some great debates. He's had some weird debates. He always has the tendency to go off on weird tangents or sound disjointed. That's the case for a long time. But you do certainly get the sense from the Biden team and all the reporting of the preparations that they're not taking this lightly. He literally blocked off the week to prepare. We know he's come through in debates, when the chips were down before. And as much as Biden has long-standing disjointed tendencies, I do think he's gotten much better in terms of the brevity of his answers. Sometimes it overcorrects to that extent. I mean, sometimes when I feel he's being more disjointed is because he's trying to cram in sort of pre-cooked talking points, regardless of the question, and it comes across a little weird. But I think he's much, much better than he was 10 years ago at sort of, hitting to his 2-minute mark. I mean, again, like he might do the trail off, anyway, and because he knows he shouldn't go on for too long. That can sound a little weird, but he's doing that because he knows he shouldn't do a 10-minute answer. So I just think he's going to come in there with a game plan. And to the extent that I can trust the pre-reporting on the Trump side, they're treating this like, just another rally, just another time for Trump to be Trump, and not really with a lot of precision about how to approach this.
So I kind of feel like the odds are it's going to kind of be a stalemate and not a fun debate to watch. But I mean, there is a chance that like Biden starts drooling on himself or that Trump melts down. I mean, what do you think the odds are that something sort of decisive or dispositive could come out of this debate?
Well, I think tie goes to the runner, tie goes to the incumbent. If they have a draw, Trump said, "You are you're completely gone." Oh, guess what? We're on the same plane now. That's a win for Biden. Um, you know, and I'm quite confident that the RNC is going to make clips that might make Biden look bad, no matter how bad he actually performs. But I think you need a genuine Rick Perry oops kind of moment for this to have salience, uh, beyond the debate itself, to make Biden look like he really isn't up to the task. I think a stammer here or a slip name when you understand the broader context, like that stuff's happened before. I don't think those would be fatal kinds of consequences. I talked last week about how many people are going to watch this debate. Well, apparently it's going to be simulcast on several networks, on all the major networks. So it may not be as big ratings as it would be if it was an October debate. But I imagine you're going to get a pretty good audience here, and it's not going to just be the clips that matter. People are going to watch in real time and assess for themselves, was this guy aware of the broader context? Did he make this little minor slip that we all do, or is he really suffering from dementia? I think people are going to make that own judgment themselves.
Well, one thing I would say is just, I think clearly Biden's team outmaneuvered Trump by sort of setting the terms of this debate, setting the contours of this debate, essentially the rules, picking CNN, picking the timing. By the way, the timing also boxed out RFK Jr., who's not able to get on the ballot, partly because he didn't have the same amount of time he would have otherwise had if it was a fall debate, to get on enough ballots to get the 270 electoral votes. That was one of the criteria for getting on. So whether that was Biden or more likely his team, I think that they have set the table for a good night. Will Biden deliver? We don't know yet, but all the lead up to the debate, Biden has won, and I think we're also seeing Biden starting to perform better in polls after Trump's conviction as well. So there's a chance that things turn the corner. Biden turns the corner here.
Now, so Trump has said, if you don't mind me shifting gears, Trump has said that he's already picked the VP in his mind, and that person will be at the debate. I don't know if we have been told exactly who will be at the debate, although I believe Burgum is supposed to be, Doug Burgum, North Dakota governor, is supposed to be in the spin room. Do we know if Vance and Rubio and others are scheduled to be there yet? Has that been reported?
That is a great question. I do not know. I mean, obviously, there can't be a ton of people there, right? This thing, there's no audience. So I'm guessing, I don't know what the rule is, and each campaign is probably allowed to bring X number of people. And I guess they will be confined to the spin room, not to the main hall during the debate. I don't know. That's a fascinating question.
So you're getting all this Burgum buzz, and I don't even know if it is really true that Trump's made up his mind. We know Trump makes last-minute decisions all the time. This could just be part of the phony suspense he's going to build into this. I mean, if anything, let's say it is only Burgum who's there of the shortlist people, and everyone's going to start thinking that it's him. Well, then obviously this is a test run for him. How does he do in the spin room? If he did a bad job, Trump's not going to say, "Well, I made up my mind, in my head last week, so I guess I have to follow through and do it." That's not how Trump operates. So I do think this is going to be a bit of a audition for Burgum, and I mean, I want to see how he does. I don't get the sense that he is really the kind of guy Trump really likes. He seems kind of milquetoast to me. Yeah, he got a little turned around on CNN when he was trying to call Biden a dictator and couldn't really answer well. How do you explain that Trump has more executive orders than he does, and you're blaming this on executive orders? That kind of thing. So I don't know if you are convinced that Burgum's really going to be the guy, or if this is really still more up in the air.
Well, so first, I think it is interesting, right, that a month or two ago, everyone thought it was maybe even for a long time, I think conventional wisdom was Trump was going to pick a female candidate, Elise Stefanik, Carrie Lake, maybe less likely, Kristi Noem. Well, Noem had her whole problem. And now I think the conventional wisdom has really coalesced that it's going to be Burgum or Rubio or I don't know, Tim Scott or something like that.
Vance.
It's going to be a male candidate, and to me, I think that's probably true, and I think it's somewhat telling, right? Like the idea that Trump was going to pick a female candidate to sort of balance the ticket isn't. I mean, that's probably a good idea based on political logic, but Trump doesn't operate that way. And so the idea that Trump would pick an older, middle-aged, older white millionaire, multimillionaire, makes perfect sense to me. Instead of a minority, instead of a woman. Of course, Trump would pick a rich, older white guy, businessman. So, that's the brand, I guess. And this is like Clinton Gore. It's like, we'll double down on the brand. I mean, Burgum
personality-wise is nothing like Trump.
Yeah, I totally agree. And maybe that's how he balances the ticket.
Well,
and I do think it would be a little bit reassuring,
actually,
to have Burgum. So maybe he does help him. But look, Burgum doesn't do anything you would normally want to do in a traditional, like, running mate selection. I mean, he's from North Dakota. Like, he's going to deliver North Dakota for Trump? Come on. Trump already has North Dakota. So all the things that you would normally think, like, does he deliver a state? Does he deliver a demographic constituency? Does he balance the ticket ideologically? Like, all of that is out the window. But that's perfectly.
You could argue that there is a potential demographic balance there, in that, does he help Trump get moderate Republican, center-right suburbanites? Does he ease the concerns of the Republican establishment enough to make it more comfortable to vote for him? I mean, and Pence was like that too, with the added evangelical layer, where there was a clear concern because of how well Cruz did in the primaries that they needed to shore up the evangelical portion of the base. Now they feel the evangelical movement is rock solid for Trump. So if they think there's a piece of the puzzle missing, Burgum, in theory, meets that criteria. Now, I would think that Trump, being so concerned about loyalty and wanting someone, pure MAGA, that, Burgum has not been that guy for the whole bulk of his time in public life, and it's only in the past month that he's being a sycophant. If I were Trump, I'd feel like, why would I trust this guy to, go through walls for me just because he's buttered me up in the past few days? But Trump's again, I hate trying to play Trump mind reader, because I think he is such a damaged individual. To go back to what I was saying, last week, and when I wrote about the monthly, the fact that he would allow Charlie Kirk and Turning Point to be the main players as get out the vote strategy, when they're clearly not practiced, have no track record in that business, and have all sorts of warning signs that they're just grifters. Trump doesn't like being fleeced. He might be a grifter himself. He doesn't want to be grifted. Why would he make that decision? What would convince him that, what flattery occurred, what snow job occurred that he would get taken in by that? It's hard for me to surmise. But I imagine Trump has vulnerabilities like any of us, that he can be played like any of us can be played if you push the right buttons. So maybe Burgum's a hell of a charmer, and we just can't see what's happening behind the scenes there. But so I think there's a certain political logic to it, in that if you recognize, hey, the base isn't enough to get me there, maybe Burgum will help a little bit.
Yeah. Look, I do think Burgum assuages concerns a little. Like, if Trump were to die, Burgum would not be the worst pick. He would not scare me the way some people would. But I do think if your goal was to balance the ticket and try to get other more establishment Republicans on board, don't you go Nikki Haley? Don't you go Marco Rubio? Like, don't you think Haley and Rubio would do what Burgum does and also have an additional appeal, like Nikki could also bring in more suburbanite moms, soccer moms, and Rubio could possibly help bring in even more Hispanics. I mean, just who knows if that actually works, that identity politics actually works. But theoretically, you would think that they could do what Burgum does and more. The one other point I would make is the brilliance of running for president. If Doug, right?
Yeah.
If Burgum doesn't, whatever his name is, if Burgum doesn't run for president, and what was really a quixotic bid, that he didn't even have any intention of running against Trump per se, but if Burgum doesn't run for president, there's zero chance he's selected as Trump's running mate. So we talk about the perverse incentives for people to run for president. This is it. It does elevate you. It can.
Well, it can. I mean, one of my, hobby horses has been, there are plenty of examples the other way where it really torched people's reputations and stymied otherwise promising careers, like Julian Castro, for example, rising star, had a terrible race. And
yeah, but Burgum wasn't the rising star. I mean, this is his shot.
Like he or like Pete Buttigieg, these are people that played their cards right, when had quixotic bids, elevated their profiles. I'm saying it can go the other way. You can blow it and hurt yourself if you don't run a respectable race. And Rubio had a very difficult race in 2016, and I think it took time for him to regain his footing, and I still think bears scars from it. I mean, this is, I think on one hand, I think the argument you were kind of teasing out there, like if you're actually thinking, I need help to win, I need to expand my coalition to win. Rubio on paper does more for you than Burgum does. Neither brings a state, but Rubio would also probably assuage some establishment types, as well as perhaps bringing in some Latino voters in a way that Burgum would not have the potential to do. But does Trump think that Rubio is less likely to be a loyalist than Burgum? I mean, they both have said critical things. You both can go into the archives and find things that would suggest, what, they're playing you. They aren't really down with you. And Rubio, I think, is more vetted. He's been in the spotlight for longer, less likely to be a surprise there. Whatever's negative about him, full well, Burgum is more untested. And if you really want someone who's pure MAGA, go with Vance. That guy, I mean, granted, Vance has also gone the other way on Trump, 8 years ago, but he's also, quadrupled down since then in a way that Rubio and Burgum haven't. So
no, I should. And by the way, I should have. Thanks for bringing up Vance, because I should have mentioned him on that short list earlier. He is on that short list, and it wouldn't surprise me. But I do think Burgum makes sense for Trump. Vance. Everyone says Trump won't pick Vance because Vance is smarter than Trump and younger and better looking than Trump and all that. I think Burgum is Trump's type of guy, a rich business guy who doesn't, maybe is not going to show up Trump. I just think that he's the most Trump pick. And by the way, all of these MAGA people who want someone to succeed Trump and carry, the banner of nationalism and populism and Trumpism. Do you think Trump wants that? Do you think Trump wants someone that's going to replace him someday? I don't think so.
Well, this is, I think, a big question, because I read about this the other day at the Washington Monthly. I mean, who he picks here, is not necessarily guaranteed to be the next leader of the party, but there's pretty good odds. They have more of a chance than anybody else. And that's win or lose. If that person actually becomes vice president, then the odds become much greater that they would become president someday. But even if the ticket loses, that person is still someone who has been quasi-anointed to be the next person. It's not like, it's not Mitch McConnell. It's probably not Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson has his own challenges, maintaining his position, and he's already made some enemies by the decisions that he's made. There's going to be a new Senate leader after McConnell, but I would not bet on Cornyn or Thune or Rick Scott to be all of a sudden the person that everyone turns to determine the party's ideological direction.
Bill,
because they'd be
this is so traditional, Bill. All the stuff you're saying is rational and what a coherent party would do and would have done pre-Trump. But number one, if they lose, Trump's running again. He's the nominee next time.
Well, if he chooses, maybe we don't know what he's going to do. He would be 82 at that point.
Otherwise, it's going to be Tucker Carlson or Kerry Lake or Charlie Kirk or
Trump Jr. I mean, I'm not saying it's guaranteed that the vice presidential, that the losing vice presidential candidate would automatically get that spot. But if Trump loses, okay. We talk about in the past, like how many times do you have to lose before the party changes direction? If Trump loses, Republicans would have had bad cycles in 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024 with Trump as the leader. Somebody is going to say, we got to do things differently. Now, maybe that person won't win the day, but there's going to be an argument how to move the party forward. And that person could be a J.D. Vance type who said, we need to go even harder on MAGA, even if it's not someone named Trump. Or it could be a Doug Burgum saying, we need to keep this party together, but maybe we got to, put a different kind of, milder face on it. Like that person's going to have some say, will get some attention, have some opportunity to bend things in that person's direction. So Trump might not be thinking, I'm anointing the next leader, but he is, or at least someone who's going to be in competition for that position.
Fair point. All right. Debate aside, we actually have some primary elections coming up as we talk tonight, right? Tonight.
Well, the one that I'm focusing on more is my childhood district of New York 16. It was a different number when I was a kid. But I grew up in Westchester County in the 1980s. Actually, I went back and looked. I mean, Westchester County voted for a Republican for president almost consistently throughout the 20th century, up until the 90s with Clinton. And we had a Republican congressman throughout my childhood, although the lines got redrawn at some point.
For those of us who are geographically challenged, where exactly is this district?
So Westchester is just north of New York City. It borders the Bronx, a classic suburb. It's not all, had a reputation of being very wealthy and waspy in the mid-20th century. That became more known as being more Jewish over time. And in fact, actually has a pretty healthy, where I grew up, had a pretty healthy Asian population. There was a New Yorker article at one point called The Japanning of Scarsdale. I grew up just outside of Scarsdale. But it is a majority minority district today. The other parts of Westchester that are not white, Yonkers in particular, heavy African American Latino populations. There's been long-standing racial discrimination battles about housing in Yonkers that go back a long, long way, and there's also a little bit of the Bronx in the district as well. But historically, I mean, it's been a pretty Democratic area as of late, but it has not always been that way. And so it was very unusual for me as an adult. Like, how did a socialist become the representative of Westchester?
We're talking about Jamaal Bowman here, right?
Yeah. I mean, so it's just totally foreign to my experience growing up there, but obviously things change. And even though it's more democratic today than it was 40 years ago, it still has pretty. It's not a Jewish majority district, but it's probably one of the most Jewish districts in the entire country. And Bowman walked a finer line on the subject coming into the position. He actually voted for Iron Dome when a lot of squad members didn't. That's the air defense system that we help fund. But after October 7th, he has leaned much harder the other way. The AIPAC came in hard there, really pushed his buttons. He calling the AIPAC a Zionist regime, accusing Israel of genocide. I mean, these are things that don't play well. I mean, and granted, there's division in the Jewish community about Netanyahu and the response to October 7th, but the evidence suggests that you have a lot of older Jews in the area that don't like the way Bowman has handled this. And you just see, so the polling, what little polling we've seen, suggests that his opponent, George Latimer, George Latimer is not an unknown commodity. He's in his 70s. He's been the Westchester County executive for a long time. That's an elected position. It's kind of like a big size mayor type position. It's got executive authority. So he's got a track record running for office, meeting voters. He's not an unknown. And he has better relationships with the Jewish parts of the district than Bowman does. So polling has suggested he's ahead. What little we've seen, the money game, Latimer's won in spades, obviously helped by AIPAC, but not solely. And the way Bowman's behaved in the last days, he's acting like he's behind. He's acting very defensive.
What did you make of that? AOC came out and campaigned for him. There's a video of him, dropping F-bombs and just acting like real street and real tough. Like, what's the deal?
I mean, it feels very performative. Well, let me just stay focused here. It's not the way you would normally win an election. It's not the way you expand your base. It's not the way you would mollify people who are wavering on you. And it also sort of, I think, portrays understanding of his own district. Look, it is a majority minority district. It is not all Scarsdale Jews. There's diversity there. Like there's a way to win without those parts of the county. But it's still mostly a Westchester district, not a Bronx district. What parts are in the Bronx are in the North Bronx. And he goes to this rally in the Bronx and he says, we're going to show him the MF and power of the South Bronx. South Bronx is not in your district. So it's a weird thing to say. And it suggests you don't know your district. And you haven't really been doing the kind of basic grassroots maintenance that a congressperson normally does. So
is this the same guy, Bill, who pulled that fire alarm?
Yes.
Okay, so has that come up? Is that forgotten?
I don't know I don't know offhand how much Latimer has brought it up, or if the mailers have alluded to it or anything like that. I happen to have reached out to a couple. I still have high school friends, in the area, so I reached out to a couple this morning and said, "What are you going to do?" And one was undecided, and one is on vacation to know the primary was today. So that's America for you. But the one who was undecided, she referenced the fire alarm incident to me, so it was on her mind.
Remind me, do you recall why did he do it? When did this happen? The fire alarm thing? Well,
I think he claimed he was just trying to make it to a vote, and the door was locked, and he was trying to get the door open. The assumption of his critics is he was trying to delay a vote from occurring.
Do you remember the vote? Like what the vote was?
Yeah, I think this was a keep the government open vote.
Okay.
And he claims he was just sort of confused by the what was said on the door, and he was just trying to get the door open. He ended up pleading guilty to a minor charge that didn't have any jail time, of course, some kind of small fine, and he got censured on the floor. Like the whole thing's kind of weird. To me, it's not sort of the main thing to judge him on, but it's weird. And he's done other weird things, like jumping around and dropping F-bombs and talking about parts of the area that are not in your district. It's weird. So I just don't think he has really. I mean, usually an incumbent does the kind of basic blocking and tackling, the meeting with all parts of the district, just to sort of be present and be comfortable with all communities, so they feel a bond with you, and then little things you can flick off. And it just doesn't seem like he's done that. He's been much more interested in being an ideologue, a performative member of the squad, and I think that makes you vulnerable. Especially up against someone who has done those things in other capacities. This is someone who has run for office in the vast majority of this district, met voters, has name ID, has familiarity. That's a recipe for a relatively new incumbent losing.
It sounds like Bowman's in trouble, is what it sounds like to me. Fair?
I mean, look, again, I don't want to be definitive about it, because, hey, maybe Latimer's banked a bunch of early vote, and there's going to be this big election day turnout from people who are angry. I mean, like, Latimer is not a flawless candidate. He keeps saying things that are kind of, so it can be interpreted as racially insensitive. He said, you only care about black and brown voters. What about everybody else? Like, it's a majority minority district there. I wouldn't put it in those terms if I was Latimer. He said Latimer wants to be the representative of Dearborn, Michigan, and not Westchester. Again, you could have made the point that he's being a performative ideologue without putting it in those terms and referencing a Muslim majority community. So I would certainly second guess Latimer on those kind of fronts. But someone who has run for office many times before and has more familiarity with people, like that might be more easily excused than someone who's a relative newcomer. And so that's not usually the case. The incumbent is the newcomer, but I think Latimer's been on the ballot more than Bowman has. So that's where I think Latimer would have the edge here. But if Bowman was to win, it's because Yonkers is the biggest city in the district, and that's not the whitest that's not the most Jewish part of the district. If there was like a huge election day turnout there, that's a different story. But the early voting numbers were hugely skewed to the Jewish areas. I mean, Scarsdale, which is the biggest, had nearly half of the Democratic electorate turn out early, way more than any other part of the district. And again, that's not the biggest city in the district; it's a village technically. But I think it's indicative of where the energy is in the race, I would think.
Also in New York, my friend and former boss, John Avlon, is running in a primary there. Do you have any intel or insight into
He's
that?
Long Island. He's running in the Hamptons part of the state.
His campaign has to be free Justin Timberlake, right?
I don't know offhand who he's running against. I tend to have a bias against people who are celebrities or sort of quasi-celebrities, whether it's you've been on TV or you're a military veteran or you've been an activist in a national sense. If you
wait, Bill Scher hates military veterans. Is that?
It's not that I hate military veterans. It's that if you are somebody who has not been present in your district, doing things on the ground, running for local office, being a community helper, being in the PTO, or helping up with roadside cleanup, just something that really roots you in that area. If you've been in the military and you've been abroad and you come back and some political consultant shows up on your door and says, hey, you got a great resume. You would be a fantastic candidate. Please give me your money so I can help you. We have a lot of examples of that candidate not winning primaries or general elections.
Yeah, I think I worked for one of those candidates, Bill, and we almost campaigned in the wrong district. So it's all full circle. That was my fault. Who knew that
Avalon might be more rooted in that district than I understand, and I don't know who he's running against. But that would be sort of my gut worry. Like, do you know enough people you might go to a bunch of Hampton parties, but like the district is bigger than just that. So do you know enough people who will vouch for you who are really tight on the ground? Like, that's what I would worry about if I were him.
Well, sadly, Bill, one person who I think is going to disprove your theory is Lauren Boebert, the carpetbagger who moved into a new district and appears poised to win a Republican primary in Colorado today. She moved into Ken Buck's district because her district she barely survived 2 years ago. And I think she's going to win because there are 5 other Republicans running against her, and they're going to split the non-Boebert vote, and she'll probably win with a plurality.
I can't say I followed it as closely. Pluralities, obviously a name person, fractured electorate, that could be a good recipe to winning an election, even if you're not necessarily otherwise the best positioned on the ground. But if it was a one-on-one with like a Latimer type person who had a proven track record in that district, I'd feel less confident about her prospects. What you laid out there, I think, makes some sense. I apologize, Mike. I do have to wrap things up and take care of some other business here.
I know when I'm not welcome, Bill. I know when I'm being hurried along. Okay, so we'll call it a day. This is it for us. I'm out next week. Hopefully, there will be maybe an audio podcast with you and Guy Denton doing some post-debate stuff. The DMZ audio podcast. Anything to plug, Bill?
No, nothing to plug. I check out my recent newsletters at the Washington Monthly, but nothing. I still got to think about what the column is going to be for Thursday, which will be ahead of the debate, unfortunately.
Indeed. All right. Read my piece at the Daily Beast about how Donald Trump is pre-spinning this debate and poisoning the well, and we'll be back in a couple weeks. After it'll be like a whole different world then, Bill. The debate will be over. So who knows what the future may hold, but we'll see you then.
All right. Take care.